Hi, George here. All right, so I've just been back from my class. Actually, I do a once a week class in Ezekiel, and it was postponed because the teacher couldn't get to the class because there was actually a demonstration in Manila, sort of a rally because of corruption in government, and so it sort of caused a lot of traffic, and I guess they just couldn't get to the class. So anyway, so I left early, and on the taxi on the way back, I think they played it live. Now I'm in Manila, right? So that would have been the evening broadcast over there in the U.S. But it was morning when I heard it, and basically the gist of it was that the attack on Syria is postponed. Or at least the request that President Obama wanted to make to Congress to give him permission to attack Israel is postponed, which is, well, probably prudent on his part because now that I think President Putin has offered a diplomatic solution, it's going to be a very hard sell to authorize an attack now, unless un, you know, unless they don't, they think it's going to fail. Uh, the proposal by President Putin to internationalize, to put the chemical weapons in the hands of an international body, is something that could take a long time, months or years. And so it means that the civil war in Syria will continue, and there will still be a lot of suffering, but hopefully chemical weapons will not be used again. So there's kind of like a standoff. But I think it works to the benefit of President Assad because President Assad was winning the war anyway. So, and frustrating for the United States because I think they wanted pretty much to change the regime there, even though they're trying to say that all they're planning to do is just limited strike. But destroying the infrastructure and the command and control and the air force of a country will actually tip the the result of the civil war in Syria, one way or the other. But what does this got to do with the rapture, right? Now, bear in mind that the rapture is not postponed. It's it's definitely on time, and God knows when it's going to happen. But He's kept it a secret, right? Now, the United States as well, in their motives in attacking Syria, they're saying it's due to chemical weapons, right? But it's very unlikely that that would be the reason, because although chemical weapons are very destructive and cause a lot of suffering, nation states have not really moved in any big way on the use of chemical weapons in other countries and in other times. Very likely, the motivation behind this is either trade routes or natural resources. Most likely natural resources, because a large natural gas field has been discovered in the Mediterranean off the coast of Israel. And so Syria is next to Israel, and so whoever has some coastline near those reserves would be to advantage. And that's well worthwhile for Russia to spend a lot of money building a naval base in Syria and supporting the government in Syria, which is probably willing to give Russia access to those reserves. And of course, United States would be eyeing these as well. It has Israel for the support. However, I guess since Syria is also near those reserves, they would probably want to install a friendly regime in that country too, to avoid competing different parties competing for those reserves. And that, from the point of view of nation states, is sufficient reason to justify the expense of a war. Chemical use of chemical weapons has not, in the past, justified the use of a war, which is horrifying. So there's been agreements of it, but the kind of attack of changing a government is pretty much largely due to natural resources. I guess also Syria has a strategic value for Russia, right? Because it needs a port in the Mediterranean for its navy. So there's that. Maybe there's some trade routes to think about. Now, given that it could be natural resources as the motivation, it's likely that the United States would probably come up with another pretext for war, if not chemical weapons. In the meantime, negotiating to get those chemical weapons away is a good idea, right? And they will definitely pursue that. There are some reports coming on from the Russian side that maybe the rebels, because the Russians, I think, believe that the rebels are the ones who use chemical weapons, and we don't really know, right? Because we can't really trust what people are saying. But if the rebels were the ones who used chemical weapons in order to provoke an international response, then if the using chemical weapons on Syrians was not enough, then they would probably try to use it on Israel in order to provoke Israel into a war. And that would probably have a, you know, that could, well, that's, I don't know what to calculate the consequences of that. I suspect that might not happen because the Psalm 83 prophecy does not mention about Israel being attacked. There are countries that conspired to attack Israel, but they don't actually get around to it. They are planning and preparing and assembling forces, and Israel defeats them the same way the Midianites were defeated. So the Midianites were not yet attacking Israel. They were, of course, they were preparing a massive attack. And what Gideon did, with the help of God, because you remember what he says, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. He followed God's instructions and surrounded the Midianite camp and smashed the jars open, and the light shone. And in the confusion of that, the Midianites killed each other. Seems to suggest that there's going to be some kind of an attack, initial attack by Israel, which would cause confusion in the enemy, and the enemy would attack each other. And it would not cause that much of an effort to cause the enemy to attack each other, because they're already attacking each other now. Not that this is the start of the Psalm 83 war. But if there were to be an attack by Israel, it might be a type of attack that would trigger the enemies of Israel to basically wipe each other out. So we don't know how that might happen. But that's what Psalm 83 says. It's going to be as the Midianites were defeated. It follows in line with Israel's military doctrine of attacking first when threatened. Pretty much the way they did in the Six-Day War. And although they didn't follow this in the Arab-Israeli War in the 70s, I think that was, they clearly realized this was a mistake, and they should have attacked first once it became clear that they were going to be attacked. And so we need to watch Israel and also to pray for Israel as well, right? For their people to be safe, and that at least the war, given it's occurring, that at least the suffering caused by the war would be mitigated. And only God can do that, because God changes the hearts of people. Now, does this mean if the war against Israel is postponed, or at least the attack of the United States against Syria is postponed, then what does it mean for the rapture? The rapture is not really affected by the attack on the United States, because the rapture is just imminent anyway. There's no sign that has to proceed in order for the rapture to occur. However, we believe that it's likely that the rapture would occur before the Psalm 83 war, and it seems that the destruction of Damascus is likely to be a part of that Psalm 83 war, because after the Psalm 83 war, it seems all the surrounding countries around Israel are no longer in existence, given the fact that they're not mentioned in the coming Ezekiel war, which follows the Psalm 83 war. Right? So, the rapture is always imminent. It could happen now. Right? So, we don't really know what's happening behind the scenes. If Israel perceives an attack coming, its military doctrine would mean it will have to attack first. Now, clearly, Israel sees an attack coming because it's mobilized its anti-missile defense systems. They're all out there. So what could Israel be thinking now? What intelligence do they have? Is something, so you see, it could happen at any time. It could be that it's Israel that destroys Damascus if it feels threatened, and the way it could play out. That means the rapture is actually very, very close. So I'd be watching Israel more closely and not watching the US or Russia that much. Well, Russia and Iran will have their time in the Ezekiel war. The United States, it's not really mentioned clearly, in a clear way, in Bible prophecy. And I don't see them playing, they don't have a major role. Right? So Israel definitely has a major role. So I see the conflict as in the context of Israel and its neighbors, and Israel being threatened. Right? So watch Israel closely, and don't be discouraged by if you think I know some of you were thinking, this was it. It's still it, right? I wouldn't slack off if I were you. I prepare for departure. It's it's getting very, very close, and it's Israel is not getting safer by the day. It's getting very dangerous for Israel by the day. Not only in Syria, because events in Egypt as well are causing problems. The whole area is what they call the Arab Spring, is actually creating an environment which is very dangerous for Israel, because the new regimes of these Arab Spring people are actually anti-Israel. So how would Israel react to something like that? Right? Very, very likely, if it's Psalm 83, to be a preemptive strike by Israel on all those countries. Talking about Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. And some of these attacks, but could they be nuclear? We'll see. Something certainly happens in order for Israel to somehow get rid of these countries and cause their borders to be next to Turkey, Iran, Ethiopia, Libya. Right? It seems as though they occupy the territory between the Nile and the Euphrates. So, and all that's happening after the rapture. Okay? So at any time. So don't be discouraged and keep watchful. Watch Israel closely. Watch Israel like a hawk. Okay? This is George, signing off. Take care, God bless. And if you haven't accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, please do so now. He died for your sins. It's a free gift. Accept Him now, while there's still time. Okay? Bye-bye.